Hello, let's have some fun. I'm going to introduce you to this synthesizer called Six Signs and explain a little sound created on it. We're going to do something like that around that riff. This one. Maybe go into this. And this is not a comprehensive tutorial. Instead, I'm going to try and explain what is the difference between something that you are maybe more used to and this style of synthesis where you have a matrix and confusing numbers and operators for some reason instead of oscillators. So I'm going to not only touch on the technique, but also mention what makes the synthesis maybe not better, but definitely different from other ways of combining sounds into something that you might like or need. So let's start. Let me first use the same MIDI and plug it into Vital and build something that might resemble the bass that we were doing just now. So this is our source. This is a low enough, not a native speaker. Tried my best. Make sure that your fundamental frequency goes low enough, and then you use a filter to cut frequencies out, and that's the basis for the subtractive synthesis that you might be the most familiar with. I'm going to do it very fast, rough and dirty. I would even say lazy. We have a couple of options in terms of, how does that sound? Different filters sound a bit differently. We can do this. We could also differentiate by velocity, which I already have plugged into the pattern, just to make it a bit more different from note to note. So what did we achieve here? How did we build this? We started with a very harmonically rich sound, and then using filters, we removed part of it, but in time, it's not just cut out. At the start, it has it, and then it doesn't. And that makes it different going from the head of the sound to the tail of the sound. And that's what we are interested in, and that is going to be the ongoing theme for the discussion. Tail versus head. So we start with the head, obviously, and end up with the tail. And because they are different, in this case, simply but spectrally different, just the filter closing, not even the volume difference, no saturation, no fancy things like that. Saturation is not that fancy, but comparatively speaking. That's why when you hear that sound on a system or from a distance or in the mix or all of it, you can differentiate it better. You could tell easier when the note starts. What do you hear exactly? Is there a pitch to be heard? Because sometimes lower sound could be, let's say, pitchless, atonal, right? And we have our little real phone set up here just to take a look. For example, like this. On a, average room, not great, and average speakers. Or like this. You can definitely tell when this sound starts. You can maybe also tell that the clicks are not consistent. That's because our phase is not locked. Now they are more consistent, it sounds cleaner and techy. Remember that, we'll need that. So we have no trouble, maybe it's not as characteristic as you might like, but we have no trouble discerning, okay, this is the start of the note, and this is the BPM that we are having, this is the pause, this is etc., right? So when you open Six Signs, you are met with a completely different sound, which does not have all these characteristics. And also, you don't have filters. So you cannot build a sound like that in Six Signs. By the way, both Vital and Six Signs are free. So this is for your educational purposes. Once you know how to use that, You can afford gear, buy gear. You like some synth, buy the synth. Software, hardware, doesn't matter, but you need the hard skills to be able to use them, or you will be just a preset dweller and knob tweaker, which I understand, but don't necessarily like. So, this is what we have as a starting point. This is how it looks. This is just a set of signs. So, something to be expected. Just a sign, in this case, just one. Why do you need anything else? Why don't you just keep it this nice and round and low sound like this? Because it translates terribly. All the previous things that I've just explained about the vital example are now completely absent. There would be some systems where I would completely miss the sound. So things like maybe I'll go extreme, right? I'll find the smallest speaker there is, this. So virtually nothing, apart from the clicks that we are supposed to solve, by the way, and not leave in there. Again, no bass. So you cannot harmonize like that. You cannot add, rhythm like that. So different roles that your instrument will play in the final impression on your listener. Sure, when the speakers are big and the room is big, you will be able to hear, but not necessarily. Sometimes it's just this clickety-poppity thing. And the better the translatability, the happier you are. It doesn't mean that every sound in the world should be harmonically rich, but it does mean that if you are letting this go and using it as is, just thinking that a sub bass is a sign, you are wrong. Basically, it never basically happens like that, apart from you very carefully crafting a sound that is already good enough in the mids, and then you're just adding a little supply, and even then one sign might be not a great idea because you might want to cover larger area in terms of frequencies and in terms of pitches. Let me get a sip here. Okay, I'm fine. So, what are we looking at even? You might saw this in Citrus or FM8 or Ghost, things like that. FM8 might be FM7, FM8 might be the most popular among all of them, though Citrus might be a very close second. And why are they called operators and not oscillators? Isn't that just an oscillator? Yes, it is. A lot of language in this synthesis, I think, come from marketing. And that's unfortunate because I think that messes up the explanation, and that apart from setting this type of synthesis apart, it also makes it harder to explain what are the commonalities and what are the differences, which is my main goal. This is my job. I do teaching 5 days a week for years and years and years now. So, operator usually means that you are not only able to listen to the sound, this is the sound, okay? But also it could influence other sounds or itself modulate something. So how do you read this table, first of all? This is the operator 1, comes out here, you can read it like this, like at an angle, right? Operator 2 comes out here. Operator 3 comes out here, like this. And while it's coming out, it encounters those knobs, which represent the modulations of something by something. So judging by the intersection, for example, this knob means that we are going to listen to operator 3. It's muted right now. You won't hear that. But imagine that you can hear it. And once I turn this knob to the right, that would mean that operator 2 influences operator 3. This is how do you read that. So what does it even mean, the influencing? So to explain it better, I'll switch to operator 6. Why? because we have more opportunities to influence it. And I wish it was the default, actually. Paul, if you're listening, yeah. So, but you are, of course, free to create your own defaults. And most people who are like doing sounds professional all the time, they do that all the time. They come up with the defaults that are more comfortable for them, maybe not as foolproof to not offend anyone, but also I teach. That's why I almost never do that, because I need to present people with the defaults and explain what are they looking for, and etc. etc. So this is the same result. This is only a sine. And these numbers represent pitch, so the pitch is also the same. If I put it to 2, that will be an octave up. There. 4, 2 octaves up, etc. I'll put it back down. So, these words are different types of synthesis. I usually say it fast, PM, FM, RM, AM, but ring modulation and amplitude modulation are really, really close to each other. That's why they are kind of included. Well, even that's not even entirely correct to say kind of close. They are one and the same almost. When you use ring modulation, you can get amplitude modulation. We are not getting into that as much as I'd like to, but because that would be a very much longer tutorial. Instead, we'll keep it simpler. And I'll explain it in plainer terms. Right now, we have just a sine wave that is emitted kind of constantly, right? Just goes. The difference that you can see is just the pitch difference. This is lower, this is higher, as I hope you might hear. And also these clicks, they are determined by things like oscillator restarting, phase resetting, and also maybe an envelope that is mapped to volume specifically. When you click different things on you could notice that this page changes, right? And the name of this side of the page changes. Pay attention. Pay attention. Where do I click and where do you click? Because this is maybe the toughest part of the 6 signs interface, because there's so many interactions. You have to hide them somewhere and to access them somehow without opening like extra pages, etc. So we click. And level right now maybe accounts for some of the seeming non-linearities of the wave, but this is just amplitude, nothing more. I have a separate video. Oh, it's in Russian, the separate video. You cannot listen to that. Okay. This is, you can Google or ask ChatGPT what is ADSR or DSR, a more advanced version of it. But basically, attack is how quick do we rise to the top. Decay is how quick do we fall to the bottom, as sustain is the bottom. And sometimes the bottom isn't the bottom. It is 100%, so you cannot fall. While you're holding your button or your MIDI signal, it does not fall. It only falls when you release it, hence release. And this is the time at which it falls. Okay, so if I do that, that means that I cancel this part. No matter how long or short the decay, it's not gonna fall. There it is, as you can see. These are, again, just little overlaps of the sounds. We could maybe try and avoid them, but then we get brutal clicks because nobody uses release. That is zero MS. So, but right now the waveform does not change over time, and we want it to change over time. We want it to be maybe brighter at the beginning. We want it to maybe change in pitch or in timbre while it goes, because we want these differences between the head and the tail. Keep that in mind. Let's start with something easy first, and then we'll get back to the head and the tail. If I rotate the knob that intersects operator 6 with operator 6, that means feedback. That means the operator influences itself. Let me combat the clicks really quickly. Click on level and fade the attack just a bit more. We'll deal with it later. If we'll get nicer clicks, I'll dial it back. A bit more release. That's fine. Okay, still a bit clicky. As you can tell, this is not a sine anymore, right? It looks tilted. This is the sine. And I hope you were able to tell this just by the sound of it. But also, there is an analyzer. I honestly don't know if you see it right now. This is the little quirks of OBS capturing. But just use an analyzer, you will be able to tell. I prefer M-analyzer all the time. It's very useful to me and my students. So we now get harmonics. They are all the same all the time, but that's still something. So, and this is us influencing this sine wave with this sine wave. This matters. What influences what? So if I instead would go and use something else, for example, a different waveform. I've just opened the operator 5. Right now you cannot hear it. It's not mixed in. Let me do that real quickly. So really quickly, there it is. This is the volume. So they could be just output in parallel. They don't influence each other, you just combine the waves, which is also useful. If I slightly tweak the phase, maybe it won't be that noticeable with these pure tones. Yeah, and I could assign different things to LFO or an envelope as things like pitch and other modulations. You have a little matrix for each and every part of it, so a lot of modulation actually is accessible to you, but they are kind of in these little pockets exclusive to one section of the synth. So you have this little envelope and this little LFO just for this little section, and you'll get a different one when you click on a different section, like that. So what's the point? If I rotate this knob now, I'll dial it down. We don't listen to the operator 5. And now I dial this up. So the intersection, remember, operator 6 tries to exit and it encounters the thing. Okay, it sounds different to this, right? And also now you will be, maybe it will be easier for you. Let me dial it a bit up, right? It's a bit soft. When you click here, you have like the master volume thing. Pretty useful. If I do this, for example, might get a bit of a different result. Can definitely have a different result if I do this. Remember, I still don't hear that waveform. I, in this case, ring modulate one with another. So, just shortly, these confusing PMs, RMs, FMs, AMs, all they mean is that you are changing M modulation. You're changing something that is the first letter of the combination. So AM means you're changing the amplitude modulation. RM is almost the same, skipping that at this point. Frequency modulation, pretty telling. You are supposed to change the frequency, although a lot of synths that claim to be frequency modulating, FMing, the most popular ones they are usually lying, because that's what the user is used to. They are phase modulating, and that's different. They are moving the phase of the output oscillator left and right. They are not changing the pitch. It's different. So basically, the implication is, if we were to do this slowly, all these changes, you wouldn't be able to really tell that this is a synthesis step. You would think that this is a LFO mapped to the speed or to the pitch, like a vibrato. But because it happens very quickly at audio rates, we say usually, that means that you get completely different timbres, and you are not able to tell, at least not before you get some experience, which type of synthesis is employed, and you just hear a new tone. Just it sounds differently, like right now. Like if I switch to exponential FM or to phase modulation, just get a different sound, right? However, I urge you to not just do that. I urge you to think about time. This is one of the most crucial parts of any sound design exercise, in my experience, in my opinion. It opened the whole new world for me once I've heard this advice way back in the day. But before, you just mess with the knobs and you hope for the best, and you put some effects on it and again hope for the best. If you want your sound to come across great, if you want your sound to be fitted to your BPM, things like that, you need to think about time. For example, right now, this timbre is always modulated, always changed, so to speak. So we'll get, again, a flat waveform, just a different one. Just another type of waveform. But what if we could change it while the note is going? So it will be square-ish at the beginning and dial down to the sine back. We did this with Vital just by using filters. By the way, I could demonstrate. Give me a second. Yeah, you can't really tell, but let me zoom in. The beginning is the saw, so it's very sharp, but the end is a bit squashed and rounded, so it does not sound as sharp anymore. I could have dialed the filter even lower and get it to be almost sine-ish or even disappear. Let us look at this. See, this is almost basically a sine, right? Slowly morphs. And that what makes this sound comparatively attractive, different. The head is pronounced, things like that. Not going to be hung up on that. Let's just move on. So how do I do that here? I don't have a filter. I don't even have a saw. I have almost a saw right here, but we're going to skip that and continue building upon your sine. So what you're supposed to do is start the contrary, the opposite from Vital method that we've just used, which is called subtractive synthesis, and it's the most popular and one you should definitely learn. But this is different. You start with a darker tone and you build upon it or change it. It mutates while it goes. And we began with something that had only a fundamental and no harmonics. And now we're supposed to design where do we think this tone should go. Right now, look at this envelope. Unfortunately, it's not like animated drone, so I understand why it might be frustrating for a noob. But again, let's use Vital as a visual aid. Let's open both of them and look at what exactly do we have here. Attack, hold, decay, down. Attack, hold, decay, down. Sustain, up. Looks like it should be short, but this is a lie. Let me use this on the main volume envelope. Attack, decay, hold, down, sustain, up. What this actually means is that it jumps up and stops here, right there, until I release the key, like this. This is the release time. So if I dial decay and sustain down, that's a click. And if I do decay something, sustain down, it will decay towards the sustain level. So either 0%, 100%, or 0, 1 as it's drawn here, things like that. So what does it tell you? This envelope represents a constant energy. I press, it goes up, it stays up. But if I do this, remember this combination, we're going to do that multiple times today. This is kind of a block. So in here you have time, and in here you have the curve. So the same as if I did this. So this is turning to the left, this is turning to the right. So a more blocky sound is this, turn down to the left. So now we've accomplished our first goal. We have a sound that changes over time. Let us explore. Little squarish thing here, more of a sign there. Congratulations, you made your first step. And now you get to play. Because now all the changes matter. Start with integers, don't add anything after the dot just yet. We'll get back to that. So now, if you want to be a clever boy or girl, let's think about time even some more. Yes, we have the head, but also we have the tail, and now it's a bit pure and a bit sinish. We could just dial the feedback up. But we could create, instead of the plucky envelope, as we did here, remember to click on the intersection. That's where you see it, because other places are other places, as I told you before. We could add some attack in order to skip the head and influence more of the body. That would sound something like this. So what if I did this in a softer manner? What if I did this with another waveform? What if I did this with a lower waveform? Like this. See what I'm saying? It kind of adds this little subtone to the proceedings. Yes, I agree that the plucky idea sounded more attractive at first, but we can combine them, and that's the power of this matrix. You can assign in your mind different operators to different roles. One of them is just, the sound that you hear, and others are supposed to represent different parts of different sections of the sound, of the note in time. Now, that sound design, even if it's rudimentary sounding, but you are going to, if you approach it like that, you're getting results. So let's do something with it. Okay, let's proceed and advance, etc. Let me disable this for now and create another plucky thing on the new operator. By default, it's phase modulation, but you can switch it. And if it sounds very soft, even if you turn it way up, like this, you have the overdrive function, which solves the issue. So I like this ooh, ooh, ooh kind of sound for my, for example, bass guitar imitation. So that would be something, again, sustain down, decay a bit up. Okay. Now let's think about this. Maybe this. Okay. I understand it's clicking. By the way, by the time you download this synthesizer, it could be better. It's always improving, and Paul is hard at work, and you should give props and visit Search Discord. Piano mode, disable it. Less clicks. Maybe the bug is already fixed. And also, we could look at this. Prolong the release just a little bit. That means that they are not kind of overlapping. Once this note ended, it kind of jumps on this note on top of it, but it's better than the clicks. And maybe we can get, again, I clicked on the level, maybe we can get more of this. Okay, this sounds less irritating to me than it did before, right? I hope it does to you as well. It's not as, plucky clicky. And now we have to think about our modulation. Okay, what do you want this? Do you want this? Okay, I like this hollow, squarish sound. That sounds nice. What about something like this? Okay, this is a bit skewed now because it's an asymmetric waveform. If you didn't understand the word of what I've just said, just skip it. Okay, let's settle for this one, right? How about we add some saturation? I usually don't go for that because I don't like... actually, that could be a long video just all by itself, but I don't like saturation applied just on top of the sound without anything else. I don't think that's a good idea a lot of times, but this is a hard and fast way for us in this monophonic part to add a bunch more harmonics, and now that we don't have a flat sound, that could make sense. It just clipped, it wasn't the saturation that did the screechy sound. It just clipped internally in my FL Studio into my master limiter. Yeah. Okay, let's settle for this one. We could pronounce some parts of the sound to feed it into saturation, although I am not sure that this sits after that, but it would make sense to me, so I hope it does. We could do that, and because the waveform is now down, we can drive the saturation up and kind of squash it into it. See, that works. You get the body back. So, let's look at this. It's disabled now. What did we do here? We did the later thing, right? Can you hear that? Okay. So far, the only thing we've used is like these nice integers. And because we used time and saturation and different versions of the modulations, we got the nicer version. But usually what you get is kind of nice sounding in a bad way. It's kind of sterile. And to overcome that, we could use something more fun than this. But beware, that means your sound is more likely to become atonal. And the way we overcome this is that we do it sparingly. Maybe in a small section of the time, maybe at a little depth, although that might not protect you. But let me give you an example. Let's start with something that looks odd, -1. That actually means 0.5, so a half. In terms of frequencies, that means an octave lower than usual. If you modulate with that, you'll get a whole different rigmarole. Again, just remember, all these operators that are enabled, we don't hear them right now. We can even make sure we don't. I could. Here it is. This is the lower note. But I don't hear it. Instead, I hear the influence of one at another. Again, explaining the influence itself, for you to be clear, that would be a separate story, I think. And we're trying to focus on the practicality of the matter. Again, my opinion. Let me tweak it some. Oh, I'm not, sorry. Again, I clicked on the wrong thing and was tweaking the wrong envelope. Okay. What about -2? Sorry, -2 is at 1.5. I was incorrect before. That's why I didn't get the sound that I was hoping for. But this is like the note is now less clear, right? The pitch is kind of obfuscated, and to overcome that, we might not apply it all the time. We might not apply it right away and get this kind of post-head octaver type of sound. So the head already have passed, and now we get this little, changes in this part of the waveform that make it sound a bit beefier and lower, and maybe give you an impression of a lower sound, even if you're using the higher pitch. All these velocities for nothing right now, but we can think about that just a bit later. Let's look at the room again. See, the tone could be better. If we disable a couple of them, we could look for the readability of the note. Maybe I could prolong that. This is nice and this becomes more squarish, trianglish, and that does not make for a good readability, in my opinion. Feedback does not help me, so let's do something simpler. Let's do something like this. And now be careful with the time. Now it's kind of boomy, right? Kind of plain. And again, click here and tell your synth when do you want to make this change. Right now, what we're saying is all the time. And maybe we don't want this all the time. Or maybe not at the same power through the whole time. Maybe all the time, but not at the same power. That enables us to dial this up and this down. Kind of too plucky to my taste. Where could we dial this down? This? Yeah, probably this. Let's dial it down just a bit. We could also skip some of the attack at the start, like this. It's kind of rubbery sounding now, but that's okay. Let's ditch real phones. Okay, sounds fine to me. A bit loud, but that's fine. We can always dial it down. And if you use Unison, say goodbye to your CPU, by the way. But you could achieve some very nice things. Usually, in most cases, when you're using saturation on something that is kind of stereo, like chorus or unison voices, things like that, you will end up with more interesting stereo harmonics as well that the saturation is producing, because it gets a different sound at the left, at the right, so it produces different harmonics at the left, at the right, and it sounds wider than it maybe would if you used just a mono source. I think we're doing all right, but I promised you to do something more curious. Let's look at something we could maybe dispose of, so I could free another operator. Okay, I can deal without this. What else? I could ditch this. I could ditch the octave easily. Let's ditch the octave. So instead, let's input something weird looking. Let's input something like this. So make sure it does not look like nice and round, not 2.5, like weird looking. What you'll get at the extreme notions, it will stop making sense in terms of tone. Sometimes you need that because you're doing something that's not supposed to play notes. But that's, again, easy to stumble upon. You just rotate things until you're lucky. But what if you want to make more sense of it? Again, use time. Not just dial this down, but just tell it when is it supposed to be there. So right now it's kind of late to the party, and then it dials down rather slowly. 200 milliseconds doesn't sound long, but you should understand comparatively what does that mean for us in 218 BPM. You could measure it in your audio recording thing. This is why I use Edison built into FL Studio all the time to explain these things. But just believe me when I say that this is kind of long for this note. So if we, and also we are not starting right away. So if we compact this, let's play with the curves. Okay, now we really are getting something that we won't just be able to do with regular subtractive synthesis. I understand that modern synths like Faceplant, which I absolutely love, give you all these abilities combined. But not only they are a bit complex, for which I love it again, but they are also paid. And just so we know, the separation isn't strict anymore. People like systems, people like titles and marketing ploys, but most of the things are now kind of combined. You can use this and that and everything in one interface most often. And I like these kind of synths because they enable my sound to grow even when I'm not aware that I would have to grow it later, which is very useful when you're working, right? Instead of just redoing the sound altogether or ditching it or looking for another one, you are able to meaningfully grow it into a direction that you need, not thinking about, oh, but this synth imposes such a limitation on me. I don't like this. This is like a very engineering type of thinking where people, I'm skipping the M word, on their idea of thinking, oh, my system is so beautiful and my maths is strong, etc. But I'm here to do music. I don't know about them. I like sounds. And this is just a nice mathematical toy to create a sound. So, get back to this. Blast my speakers and my master limiter. So, if I didn't hide it, it would sound very irritating, confusing, distorting. Sure, I understand, it does, but because I did hide it, like this. Now it's kind of a mechanical rumble at the beginning, as if I'm, I don't know, hitting a gongy type of thing, like maybe a skin that is rumbling like that. That makes sense. It kind of, it was advertised as that. It was advertised as something like that you could use to create more physical of a sound. And because at the start it sounds so stale, it sounds so sterile, it kind of, when you don't understand what you're supposed to do, the promise kind of falls flat. Nothing too interesting. But once you understand the timing requirements, the envelopes, and you apply a certain amount of processing, like maybe just a regular chorus of some type, even that could make a difference. But in our case, we have unison voices and different bit rate processing, sample rates, interesting ways to break up our sound. Oldify it a bit, although I don't really go for these things, because I then try to clean up the highs and compress, and everything kind of shows now. Maybe you didn't notice, but when I pressed 12-bit, it kind of had this low-grade noise, which if I needed noise, I would have just used noise. And the fact that I cannot manipulate it meaningfully kind of distracts me. But it's a fun thing, and you should, if you like this technical side of the story, just subscribe to the Paul's channel. He does not post anything besides something that is useful to us. It's like an old school looking channel very much, and I recommend it highly. Because I did this without even thinking, because I know this guy is up for nice stuff. All right, we are basically done. Let's create a click that is also a tonal. Just to do something with the number. And now, just to entertain you a bit more, I'll give you the ability to listen to the sound. Oh, I don't have to do that, sorry. I just had to mute this and bump this up. This is a completely different note, because we are not operating at 1.0. This is the note that we were supposed to have. Let me dial it down just a bit so it won't clip. Recently we got an update with phase distortion, which I love. This is not a very wide implementation of it. I don't have too many things to play with, unfortunately, but I have some. So you could kind of design your own waveforms. You start with this, and you deform it, and you get this. This is a very simple explanation of phase distortion, but it's good enough. You get the clicks because we have an immediate waveform, and also we have an immediate amplitude, and we also have unison with the randomization of the phases. So let's create something that is weird and sounds different and off tone, maybe very high. And we can make it click like this. And now we could modulate our voice even more, but we also could just listen to this in parallel. Okay, let's add some reverb. This is Valhalla Supermassive. Just to maybe hear this top head a bit better. Because without it, suddenly it's way more stale. There's no mechanical impression. Let's remove our detuned thing. Way more stale, way more electronic, for lack of a better word. I understand you might need both. I am not just arguing that this is better and this is worse, but you should be able, as a student of music, should be able to move through the axis. What do you want? Do you want more of this, more of that? And this is how I achieve it. Basically, play by numbers and you'll be fine. So I'm very satisfied with this tutorial. I hope you were entertained as well. Again, 6 Signs is free, Vital is free, Oscilloscope is also free, by the way, but it looks different. So if you need it to look like mine, maybe I could send you my JSON with the color so you could design your own. This is a very interesting and helpful project. I hope you enjoyed this. And if you need personal consults once a week in your way of creating better music in on all sorts of ways, like you're trying to write a good part or mix better or create a sound that you like, I'm the guy. This is what I do for years and years and years. And I would love to have more English practice because I usually teach in my native tongue. Hugs and kisses. Have fun. See you around.